The political analysts are coming out and saying that the debt ceiling bill is poised to pass, as several Democrats jump over to vote against the bill with Republicans, and several Republicans vote to join the Democrats to go and make this happen. So this really is bipartisan, going in both directions. But we'll be talking about that, what's happening there, and the vote that was probably going to happen while we're on air tonight. So we'll go over some of that, what that means, and where we go from there. In other news, Mike Pence and Chris Christie make their final plans to announce that they are running for the presidency next week. So we will see, we'll discuss their candidacies, what I like about them, which is not much, what I hate about them, which is a lot, and where I believe this goes. Tara Reade in the title card. The woman who accused Biden of sexually assaulting her in a Senate hallway applies for Russian citizenship, and all the paid shills take a major victory lap on this. And Marjorie Taylor Greene tells us that McCarthy will release the January 6 tapes to 3 more outlets. It is going to be all of this and more. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary. You know, I always say it's going to be a short one, and then it never winds up being a short one. But it does look like we've got a bit of an abbreviated episode tonight. There's not a lot going on here, as most of Washington, D.C. and most of our news media is waiting with bated breath to see what actually happens with the debt ceiling deal, which, by the way, I will be watching the chat. If we do get a final vote on this while we're on air, and somebody else sees it other than me coming up here, please let me know, and we will break to that almost immediately and go back and talk about that, because I think that is going to be something important to discuss. They are going to be voting on it here tonight, so we will see. With the way the Rules Committee went and the debates, I'm actually moving a little bit back over into the positive side. Unfortunately, I think this is probably 75-25. I think this passes now, unfortunately, which is lame, but we'll be talking about that. We'll talk about Tara Reade. We'll talk about Mike Pence and Chris Christie, because, yeah, they think that they're going to come back and run here tonight, too. So it's going to be all this and more over here on Contemporary. Let's get the live chat up here. Let's see what you guys are doing over here. Got the Rumble chat up if you guys want to go chat over on Rumble. Also a great place if you want to go make a donation, because we are monetized by default over on Rumble. Get the main chat up here as well. Mr. Scott says, word to my homie. Want to get in on an inside joke? The joke is Rogan Barkley 2024. We're streaming this debt ceiling vote. I think C-SPAN might do it, but I don't know if they're going to come back out and stream it. I think that the announcement's just going to be made at the last second, as it usually does with some of these things. I don't know if C-SPAN actually did sit down and stream out the debates, because, yeah, we had debates as far as the rules go with this, so they're debating it right now. We'll see what the final vote is, but let's get down into the news. Before we go and get into the news, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, and Clown World Chronicles, as we bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. Stop getting your news from people who wear suits that cost more than your houses. Start getting your news from people who are just like you. One second. Oh, I think allergies are going to start creeping up on me in just a second here. A little bit of that bubble up in the front of your nose. I thought I was going to sneeze there for just a second. I've been doing that all day, so it wouldn't be anything new. But before that starts, before the sneezing fit starts into here, and I've got to start muting and saying, sorry, excuse me. Let's get down into the news of the day. We're going to start today with our finance segment, as we usually do. Hey, look, that's me. I'm watching myself on the monitors here, so let's get down to it. The Dow did another big smiley face throughout the day today, dropping at the beginning of the day before clawing its way a little bit more slowly back up, and a little bit more of a drop again as everything closed. The Dow closed down 134.51 points, or 0.41% to 32,908.27. The Bitcoin had a fairly significant drop throughout the day today as well. Your Bitcoin lost 541.3 US dollars. That is almost 2% down, 1.95% down on the loss today. That is at 27,158 US dollars and 80 US cents. So that's what we have for that. Your gas prices in the Madison area are holding steady right now. These gas prices do not reflect your local prices. Check your local listings to see what your gas prices are at your local stations. But no change from yesterday. $3.50 out on the west side, $3.50 on the east side with a $3.30 outlier and a $3.60 outlier. Pulling some of the outliers, your gas prices may reflect differently, but this is a running average of the same stations we've been watching since the beginning of the show. Let's grab our finance article for the day, coming with advertisements, of course. Stock slip as investors look to House vote on debt ceiling. NASDAQ pops nearly 6% in May, from Alex Herring and Jesse Pound. Stocks fell off Wednesday as investors kept an eye on the federal debt ceiling debate in Washington in the final trading day of May. The Dow traded 134.51 points lower, or 0.41%, to end at 32,908.27. The S&P dipped 0.61 to close at 41,7983. The Nasdaq slipped 0.63, finishing up at 12,935.29. The deal, which was received over the weekend by Biden and McCarthy, cleared a major test on Tuesday night after advancing to the House floor following a 7-6 vote in the House Rules Committee. The floor vote's expected to take place Wednesday evening. I think we even have the votes to pass this today, said Pat McHenry, a GOP negotiator on the debt deal, on CNN's Squawk Box on Wednesday morning. Sam Stovall, chief investment strategist at CFRA Research, said a debt ceiling deal will likely pass before the U.S. would default, but investors are wondering if more changes in time are needed before an official agreement can be reached. Once a bill is approved, he said market participants will shift focus to the June Federal Reserve policy meeting. Excuse me. God, I hate allergy season. Let's see. Sam Stovall, chief investment strategist at CFRA Research, said a debt ceiling deal will likely pass before the U.S. would default when investors are wondering if more changes are needed before an official agreement can be reached. We read that one already. Some investors are worried that the high decibel dissenting fringes might end up causing this vote to fail and require some adjustments before it ends up passing, Stovall said. People are taking whatever profits they can ahead of the vote tonight. Wednesday's close marked the end of May trading month. The Nasdaq finished the month at 5.8% higher, helped by a rally in artificial intelligence-related stocks and other tech names. The S&P added nearly 0.3 to the month, despite at one point relinquishing its month-to-date gains during Wednesday's sell-off. The Dow fell almost 3.5% this month, pulled down by May losses greater than 10% from Nike, Disney, Walgreens, 3M, Chevron, and Dow. So that is where we are at with that. Our layoffs report today comes from, well, actually, I'm kind of bummed about this because this is probably one of my top 3 video game studios. Firaxis is the latest video game studio hit by layoffs. Axios reporting with Steve Totilo. Firaxis Games, the video game studio behind Civilization, has laid off about 30 developers, a source familiar with the studio tells Axios. The layoffs happened yesterday as studios are cutting roles across the industry. The cuts were due to sharpening of focus, enhancements of efficiencies, and an alignment of our talent against our highest priorities, a rep for Firaxis publisher 2K Games told Axios. The studio remains in focus on developing critically acclaimed video games, they also said. Firaxis' most recent game, December's tactical superhero combat adventure, Marvel Midnight Suns, reviewed well but sold poorly. The CEO of Firaxis' parent company, Take-Two Interactive, had pinned the weak sales and poor release timing. In February, Take-Two said it was initiating $50 million cost reduction program that would include some layoffs. Take-Two purchased mobile game maker Zynga last year for nearly $13 billion. What did I used to play that was a Zynga game? I know I've played Zynga before. I know that name. I just don't know what it is. That same month, 2K announced that Midnight Suns creative director Jake Solomon and longtime Firaxis boss Steve Martin were exiting the company, with Heather Hazen promoted into leadership spot. The studio revealed it was working on a new Civilization game. Please don't ruin it. Please don't ruin it. Please don't ruin it. That's all I ask. Don't ruin Civilization. But that's a part of the reason that I was so bummed about this too. Like, I don't care about Marvel 2 Suns. That means nothing to me. Or Midnight Suns, or whatever the hell it is. That means nothing to me. I love Civilization. 5 and 6, honestly, are the only ones that I've ever played, but the other big one, and this coming back from the early part of the 2000s, Sid Meier's Pirates, from the same producer, was probably one of my favorite PC games. That was one of the things that pulled me off console. I mean, I had been playing Diablo on PC, but I'd still had a weak spot, and I wanted to keep up with all the consoles at the same time. When I played Sid Meier's Pirates for the first time, which is also a Firaxis game, that just cemented that I didn't want to buy another console, and I wanted to see what PC did instead. So, Firaxis is making layoffs. Don't ruin Civilization. Mr. Scott says gold is up to about $50 this week. Programmers are getting effed. It's woke BS. Look how they chased Tarnoff from Minecraft. I don't know that name, unfortunately. Take-Two is woke. Okay. They effed over the Kerbal Space Program, too. I don't know anything about that. Mogwai says, please don't fuck it up. Please don't fuck it up. The new Civilization game. Q Harris cackle. No! No! Alright, let's talk debt ceiling. And we're going to start down on the debt ceiling talks with, again, going back to CNBC. Debt ceiling deal advances to final House vote after McCarthy gets help from Democrats. From Christina Wilkie. A bill to raise the debt ceiling, cut government spending, passed a key No, it didn't cut government spending. It didn't cut anything. Passed a key procedural hurdle in the House on Wednesday, clearing its path for a final vote on the floor later in the evening. A package of rules advancing the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which is one of the most fiscally irresponsible acts to ever leave Congress, passed by a vote of 241 to 187, with 52 Democrats siding with Republicans to support it, and 29 Republicans voting against the measure, along with most Democrats. Traditionally, the party in the minority does not vote to approve the debate rules, but as the vote Wednesday stretched on well past its time limit, it became clear that the GOP House Speaker McCarthy would need Democrat votes to pass the measure with a simple majority. Excuse me. Those votes appeared in the last minute. 1 second again. Man, these allergies are beating me up today. Apologize for that. And the Instagram side did hear all of that too. I can hit the mic off if I do have something coming back up at the back of the throat, but I can't hit the Instagram microphone off, unfortunately. The votes appeared in the last minute when House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries stood up and held a small green card. The card was a signal to dozens of Democrats who had held back their votes to that point come forward to support the rules package, putting it over 218. Congress is rushing to approve the measure by Monday, the earliest date that the U.S. risks a first-ever sovereign default, which is again false. Janet Yellen has said federal funds could dry up in the coming days unless lawmakers raise the borrowing limit. Failure to do so would upset global financial markets, spark job losses in the U.S., and jeopardize vital government benefits for millions of Americans. To prevent what Yellen had called a potential catastrophe, congressional leaders will need to win support for the bill in both chambers of a divided Congress. Further complicating the support and opposition to the bill Wednesday was a surprise finding from the nonpartisan CBO, which released its assessment late Tuesday, of the bill's impact on federal debt and deficits. The CBO determined that, contrary to Republican stated intent, the bill's new work requirements for SNAP would not save any money over 10 years, but it would instead actually cost money. That wasn't the most important thing that we were asking for to begin with. That is because in order to get the White House to agree to new work requirements for able-bodied childless adults, Republicans agreed to add new exemptions from work requirements for especially vulnerable groups like veterans and homeless people. If these exemptions go into effect the same time as the new work requirements, rather than push people off food stamps because they fail to meet their requirements, CBO found that the net effect of the bill will be to enroll an additional $78,000 a month in the program from the exempted categories like veterans. That sounds like a failing of government, or at least governmental policy, to incentivize the little man from starting the business and employing some of these people. Republican Party leaders pushed back, claiming a hastily arranged conference call that the CBO was incorrectly counting people who were already exempt from work requirements, which is a possibility, actually. But Republican opponents of the bill quickly seized on the CBO findings to argue the bill betrayed its own conservative principles. Well, it did, but not for the work requirement side of things. You can't make this stuff up. The disastrous Biden-McCarthy deal expands welfare. Andrew Clyde of Georgia tweeted on Wednesday. So, the final vote could happen at any moment now. We'll continue watching for this. Let's grab one from CNN. House GOP challenges CBO's analysis of work requirements and debt ceiling deal, from Tammy Luby. House Republicans defended the broadening of work requirements for safety net programs in the debt ceiling bill on Wednesday, saying it would help people escape poverty and assist employers looking to hire. In a call with reporters, the representatives also challenged the Congressional Budget Office's analysis of the package, released on Tuesday, that showed enrollment in the food stamps program would increase by 78,000 people in an average month when fully implemented, as well as grow spending by $2.1 billion over the decade. I think it might actually, it might grow people adding to this every month, but I don't think it's going to be by 78,000 people a month. I think that's a little bit of a cooked number. Under the package, able-bodied adults without dependents who are age 18 to 54 could get food stamps for only 3 months out of every 3 years, unless they are employed at least 20 hours a week or meet other criteria until 2030. Currently, that mandate applies to those ages 18 through 49. But veterans, people experiencing homelessness, and former foster youth of all ages would be exempt under the debt ceiling bill. The legislation would also tighten the share of unused exemptions states can carry over from year to year. What we know unimpeachably from the bulk of the evidence is that work requirements, when properly deployed, absolutely help people escape poverty and grow the economy, said Dusty Johnson of South Dakota, who authored a more stringent bill earlier this year to increase work mandates in the SNAP program known as in the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program known as SNAP, the formal name for food stamps. Advocates for lower-income Americans, however, say that many people receiving government benefits are already employed, and they did point to multiple studies to show work requirements don't really help additional people find jobs or increase their income, but instead strip them of much-needed aid. Johnson also argued that GOP's insistence on beefing up work requirements is not about slashing government programs. Well, it is for those of us on the ground, but as I've always said, the happiest that somebody in the government will be is when other people are dependent on the government. So that is something to keep in mind. Are we running low latency right now? No, it looks like everything's running excellent. I just happened to look over at my Rumble monitor, and it looks like crap. It looks like super low quality on the screen. Let's see. Our Republican lawmakers also blasted states for using loopholes to expand enrollment to secure more federal funding, and cited a recent Axios Ipsos poll that showed nearly 2/3 of Americans support work requirements for food stamps and Medicaid. I mean, I would argue it too, honestly. Because it doesn't seem to math to me that you add 5 years to the ability of people to jump in on this for the first time, and you're going to somehow get more people. Especially when the younger generation, like, we're not having baby booms like, well, the baby boom and Gen X. But we'll see what happens there. Based Rand Paul. Senator Paul unveils conservative alternative to Biden-McCarthy debt ceiling agreement. Bold actions must be taken. From Chris Enlow over at The Blaze. Rand Paul announced Tuesday that he will introduce the conservative alternative to the debt ceiling agreement reached by President Biden and House Speaker McCarthy. Like other Republicans, Paul believes that McCarthy made significant concessions that essentially kick the can down the road and do not solve the problem of government spending. Let's see. Oh, it's running well up here. That's good. Yeah, just, okay, it did clear up over on the Rumble side too. That's the one I'm watching because that's the only way I can see the chat over there. Mogwai says, you know you're getting screwed without lube when you hear the government is going to help. Yup. That sure is what you know, right there. Like other Republicans, Rand Paul believes McCarthy made significant concessions that essentially kick the can down the road and do not solve the problem of government spending. Paul, therefore, said he will propose an amendment to the so-called Fiscal Responsibility Act that would raise the debt ceiling only $500 billion in order to return to the negotiating table. His proposal thus solves the immediate problem of the U.S. potentially defaulting on its debt while seeking to address the larger problem of out-of-control government spending. That's going to piss a few people off, too, by the way. One of the reasons, and I'm going to say this right off the bat, one of the big reasons that Democrats can come in and say, yes, we will support this, even though it screws over our constituents, whom we have told we will fight tooth and nail to prevent from having to restart their student loans from here until eternity, is the fact that they got a completely suspended debt ceiling deal. And $500 billion, that's like 3 months of government spending, if that. Which means they get out of the immediacy of the crisis, and then it's right back to the negotiating table. In a statement, Paul cited a CNN poll that showed a majority of Americans support raising the debt ceiling with simultaneous cuts in government spending. I would guess the Americans answering that poll meant real cuts in spending, not an annual increase in just 1% over an already bloated levels of pinko pox spending. Paul quipped, bold actions must be taken to defeat our mounting national debt, and my conservative alternative to the Biden-McCarthy deal gives us real opportunity to get our fiscal house in order. That bold action includes replacing the caps on discretionary spending with caps on total spending while instituting a cut of 5% in spending each year. The plan would cut $1.2 trillion in government spending by fiscal year 2028. Can we get that number a little bit higher? Maybe? Can you get it to $2 trillion? I went. I didn't go and I didn't get a 4-year degree. I actually stopped going to 4-year and I went into a trade school, which might have been worse, honestly. Nancy Mace, an otherwise moderate Republican, also condemned the debt ceiling agreement on Tuesday in a damning Twitter thread. Among other problems, Mace said the agreement normalizes record-high spending started during the pandemic and doesn't actually set a debt limit. Fully funds every spending request by the admin, pretty much, she added. Washington was, and always will be lousy at responsibly spending your tax dollars. That won't change unless we demand change. The House Freedom Caucus, meanwhile, is irate. But I mean, the House Freedom Caucus is irate. That's not the headline, that's the title of the newspaper. But we don't have a lot of details from Rand Paul's bill, so we don't know where that's going to go. We'll continue to watch this. Based Ocasio-Cortez? I'm sure she's looking for more spending and less cuts. And probably no student loan payment restarts. But from the Hill's Olaf Ocean, Ocasio-Cortez says she's voting against the debt limit bill. The Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch, is planning to vote against the debt limit bill on Wednesday as the Treasury Department's June 5th deadline for default fast approaches, according to her office. The New York lawmaker, one of the highest profile progressives in Congress, had earlier signaled she would oppose the legislation. Well, I can say one thing about Algebra 2 there, Mr. Scott. When I was in 6th grade and taking Algebra 2, I didn't have the money to buy answers. And I passed. Alright, it's time to do AOC voice. Are you ready? Okay, puppy, my red line has already been surpassed. I mean, where do we start? No clean debt ceiling, work requirements, cut the programs. I would never. You're in a loop. Oh, I would never vote for that. Other progressives have also expressed concerns with the legislation, as have a number of lawmakers on the other side of the aisle, raising questions about whether Congress will be able to pass it in time. McCarthy and Biden announced Saturday they had reached a tentative agreement. That was crap. Even with the agreement, some Republicans have said they plan to vote against the debt ceiling, including Nancy Mace, Chip Roy, and Wesley Hunt. Wesley Hunt is of Texas. But the legislation cleared the hurdle Tuesday after the House Rules Committee advanced the bill on a 7-6 vote, with Roy and Ralph Norman joining the Democrats to oppose it. While that marks the necessary victory for proponents of the bill, its fate is not yet certain, as both parties look to rally their members ahead of a floor debate on Wednesday. So, the debate is on. We will see what happens with that. And again, she's just looking for raise the debt ceiling, suspend the debt ceiling, and let's just go back to business as usual. Nancy Mace and AOC are agreeing. Okay, damn it, stop screwing with the simulation, says Mogwai. Thank you. But basically, until we sit down and figure out what's going to happen and what the vote's going to be, we sit in limbo while we wait for this, and let's talk presidential politics instead. From NPC News. Mike Pence is set to launch his presidential campaign next week. Do it! I want to see you get on a debate stage with Trump. This man will never be president. He's in another situation where the vast majority of the Republican Party at this point is Reformed Democrats who came from the Union side and got screwed when the progressive movement took over the Democrat Party. Evangelo-con Mike Pence, even before the January 6th ruckus, does not play to that. From Jonathan Allen. Mike Pence plans to enter the GOP presidential nomination fray June 7th with a campaign video and a kickoff speech in Des Moines, according to a person familiar with his launch schedule. The former vice president, a longtime advocate of the priorities of the traditional conservatives on social and economic issues, will join the race at a time when his one-time boss claims a majority in most national polls, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is in a clear second place. Redefining himself to Republican voters, most of whom know him primarily as Trump's vice president, will be a challenge. But the Indiana-bred Pence... So, hold on. With Indiana, their postal code is IN. Would that mean that Mike Pence is inbred? But the Indiana-bred Mike Pence views his fellow Midwesterners in the Iowa GOP and their first-in-the-nation caucuses as hospitable, home for his brand of politics. Typically, the Iowa caucuses play a winnowing role in the nomination fight, providing rocket fuel to a handful of candidates while burying the hopes of the rest. Oh look, we view this race as absolutely wide open, and Iowa is really going to solidify itself in the pivotal player, a person familiar with Pence's plans said. It's a place that values Mike Pence's principles, traditional conservative principles, deep-rooted faith, and uncommon character. My big question here is, when will Mike Pence find time from being the bodyguard for Johnny Quest to get out and actually run for president? The former vice president will campaign in all 99 Iowa counties before the caucuses. The person said, adding the campaign will do the things that put Mike Pence in an advantageous position. That includes a lot of retail politicking, from town hall-style meetings with Iowans to drop-by sessions at restaurants. In those sessions, he will have to explain to Republican voters why he split from Trump and certified their 2020 election loss on January 6, 2021. Again, under most circumstances, Mike Pence will play well to the Evangelo-cons. Independents, he will not. And that's kind of where I think a lot of this is going. Pence obviously can't win the core because of Trump. And he can't win with independents because of the conversion therapy accusations that people actually believe. He will play very, very well with the Evangelo-cons. And the far, far right. He will play very, very well with them. But that is not enough to bring him over the finish line. You know who else is getting in the race? Chris Christie to announce GOP presidential campaign next week. Oh my God. Does anybody have any popcorn? I can eat a little bit of popcorn, by the way, in my diet. Not a full bag. But I can have a cup of popcorn and still stay within my daily carbs. And I might need that for Chris Christie getting hammered on the debate stage. I am looking forward to the end of the Christie era. From Mike Allen. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is expected to announce his 2024 Republican candidacy for president next Tuesday in New Hampshire. Axios has learned. Excuse me. Christie, 60, is a former close Trump ally who now calls the former president a coward and a puppet of Putin. He gives traditional Republicans a horse, but seems to have a narrow market in today's GOP. Well, let's see. Let's take a review of what Chris Christie did. Number 1, turn his back on Trump. Bye-bye core voters. New Jersey border of the line Democrat. Bye-bye Evangelocons. Close advocate of Trump's anti-war stance. Bye-bye neocons. Oh, and took his family out to the beaches after New Jersey had them closed because he was above the law and the rules. Bye-bye independence. Who is your audience here, Chris Christie? Can you explain that to me, who your audience is? Who you plan to campaign to? Because I just took all 4 of the major factions of the Republican Party that you need to win all 4 of in order to win the nomination, and you can't get a single one of them. Pence can at least pull the Evangelocons. Even though they're all too focused on Ron DeSantis right now. He can at least play to that aspect of it. Oh yes, I will never be seen in a room alone with a woman who isn't my wife. He can play to that base side of things. Not well, but he can do it. What are you hoping to accomplish here, Chris Christie? So we have that. A little bit of the DeSantis feud. Daniel Horowitz. This is an op-ed from The Blaze, which means the opinions expressed in here are the opinions of Daniel Horowitz, not necessarily the opinions of Glenn Beck, The Blaze, Turn Some Pages Productions, Contemporary, or your host, J. Edgar. This is an opinion. Horowitz, in which Team Trump brags about the worst bill he signed and attacks DeSantis for opposing it. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that got me off the Trump train. And why my video endorsing Trump was titled, I'm doing it, but I hate myself for it. The exact title was, I've endorsed Trump kicking and screaming. In a recent attack ad against Ron DeSantis, Trump's campaign accused the Florida governor and former congressman of voting against border wall funding because he opposed the 2018 Cromnibus bill. So did I, by the way. Either they are knowingly being dishonest, or worse, they know the truth about the bill that they're touting and still have no remorse about Trump signing it. The bill was the critical component to the failure of Trump's domestic policy. That's a fair assessment, by the way, for Daniel Horowitz. And any continued support for it is disqualifying because it demonstrates that he has learned nothing from his budget boondoggles. We're living in a budgetary hell with weaponized government agencies flush with cash and a lack of a full border wall, precisely because of the bill Trump signed in March 2018 to bust the budget caps, fund the worst agencies at record levels, and limit the border wall at the same time, yet you have to give him credit. Rather than running away from his record, he criticized DeSantis for voting against it. Of course, every other Trump supporter in Congress opposed the bill negotiated by Paul Ryan. Well, that's 3/4 of your problem right there. Mitch McConnell. There's another 1/8 of it. And Steve Mnuchin. That takes up the other 1/8 of your problem. There's your entire problem in those 3 names right there. By March of 2018, Trump had already failed on every single budget fight despite a GOP majority in both houses of Congress. If you want to know why the border numbers were higher, the interior immigration enforcement numbers were lower, and the debt and dependency were greater than under Trump than Obama. It all gets back to these budget bills, and that's what Trump did with his trifecta control. He passed budget bills that were so advantageous to Democrats. They literally got more Democrat support than Republican support, similar to what McCarthy is doing today with the debt ceiling, which is also a fair assessment. And Horowitz comes with the vote tally on the omnibuses. That was my biggest problem with Trump. That was the big one that I had, was the fact that I liked the tax cuts. I thought they were great. I liked the culture war stuff. Even though I don't participate in it myself, I liked watching it. I thought it was good to see the people who were affected by the culture war get a chance to fight back for one of the first times in some of their lives. I liked that. To let people like that have a seat at the table. I like that kind of stuff. The foreign policy, the fact that we didn't have any war, that plays to my libertarian sentiments. No new wars. Yes, please. Let's cut some of the military defense budget while we're at it. But it was the spending, the omnibuses, that he promised he was never going to sign another one of. And then proceeded to do it 5 more times throughout his presidency. 3, I'm sorry. 5 times total, 3 more times throughout his presidency. Including, yes, H.R. 601, 2017 blank check debt limit increase. The tax cuts were great, and they did a lot of good for this country, but when you don't couple them with a spending cut, you don't get the record inflation like we got under the Biden admin, don't get me wrong, but you have a lot of bad things happen with that. So, yeah, this is probably not the line to go down, Trump. Again, agreeing with Horowitz again. Good on you for standing by your record, but that part of your record blew. Now for the title card of today's episode. From CBS News, Biden sexual assault accuser Tara Reade asked for Russian citizenship. And by the way, this is the objective article. We'll be looking a little bit at the CNN article. We're not going to go too deep into it. We're going to take most of our information from the CBS article, but we'll look at what the propaganda is trying to do with this as well. So, no author given. A woman who accused Biden of sexual assault during the 2020 presidential race appeared Tuesday in Moscow and said she was asking President Putin for Russian citizenship. Tara Reade, who worked in now President Biden's congressional office for a short period in 1993, said she wanted to stay in Russia after a Republican lawmaker told her she was in physical danger. Reade, 59, said in an interview streamed by the Sputnik Media Group, a Russian press outlet, that she'd arrived in Russia as a vacationer. That's a really weird place to vacation. When I got off the plane in Moscow for the first time in a very long time, I felt safe. And I felt heard and I felt respected, she said. I'm still kind of in a daze a bit, but I feel very good, she said. I feel very surrounded by protection and safety. Reade obviously sparked headlines in 2020 by claiming in a podcast that Biden, who was a senator at the time, sexually assaulted her at a Capitol Hill corridor in August of 1993 when she was 29. Her accusations came just as Mr. Biden was ramping up his campaign against incumbent President Trump, who himself faced accusations of sexual abuse and rape. Mr. Biden categorically denied the claim, and we didn't believe all women anymore. Hey, look, man, it's not true, man. I'm saying unequivocally that it never happened, he said. Reade said she filed a complaint after the alleged incident, but has no record of it has been found, and it's not clear if her allegations have ever been formally investigated. A 1996 court document says her ex-husband mentioned that she'd complained of sexual harassment while working in Biden's office. Reade, who called herself a geopolitical analyst, said in the Sputnik interview that after making her allegations public in 2020, she was threatened with prison, her life was threatened, and she was called a Russian agent. Sitting alongside Maria Butina, an actual Russian agent, current member of Russia's parliament, who was arrested and imprisoned in Washington in July of 2018 as an alleged spy for Russia before being released in October 2019 and deported, Reade told the interviewer, "She's always loved Russia. I do not see Russia as an enemy, nor do many of my fellow American citizens." Oh, you know that the shills are going to run with that. Well, technically they already have been. She said, adding that she has one large request. Though she wants to hold on to her U.S. citizenship, she said she'd like to apply for dual citizenship in Russia from the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. I do promise to be a good citizen. you know they are going to run with this. Now, not confirmed in any of these articles is the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene has talked about bringing Tara Reade down to testify in hearings about corruption that go along with the Biden administration, which may be a part of the reason that she feels that her life is in danger. While standing up to the Clinton machine, number one, puts your life in danger, puts a target on you to begin with. Now, and before we look into what the propaganda is going to say about this, I do perhaps not agree with her decision to do so, but understand why she chose to do it. And the big part of the reason for her choosing to go to Russia is the fact that large swaths of the Clinton campaign and the Clintons themselves, Biden's family, several members of the cabinet, along with Lindsey Graham himself, have arrest warrants out for them. Arrest on site in Russia. So, that is where we are at with that. But CNN is going to tell you a different story. Just with their headline, "Woman who accused Biden of sexually assaulting her in 1993 defects to Russia." A former staffer who accused Biden of sexual assault has defected to Moscow, telling state media that she felt safe in Russia and would seek citizenship there. I mean, just the headline right there, doesn't that make it sound extra sinister? She's defected to Russia. Look at her. She's going to be a spy. She's defected. Aiding and abetting the enemy, and a host of other bullshit claims that they're going to try to push over the top of her. So, that's what they're doing with that. Jake Tapper accidentally saying the quiet part out loud. Jake Schneider tweeting out about Jake Tapper here with a couple videos. First video, Jake Tapper: "I remember when Brett Kavanaugh hearings, like any wacko can make allegations and call it in to the FBI or whatever." Let's listen. Shot. Here's your shot.
I mean, I remember from the Brett Kavanaugh hearings that like any wacko can make any allegation and call it in to at the FBI or whatever. The question is, what's the case file show?
Right.
I mean, I remember from the Brett Kavanaugh hearings.
I don't see an earpiece on him, but if he's got one on the other side, I bet you that was exploding saying, "You just called Christine Blasey Ford a wacko, and we were supposed to believe all women when it came to her, and you're undermining our narrative and everything else." Because minutes later, here's
about
your
all
chaser.
the unsubstantiated, wild. Right, and before I get tweets, let me say I'm talking about all the unsubstantiated, wild, anonymous allegations against Kavanaugh. Just to be clear. Sarah, right, and before I get tweets.
No, we know what you meant. You can sit and twist in the wind all you want, but we know what you meant. Jake Tapper saying the quiet part out loud. From the Daily Wire. FBI admits file on Biden criminal bribery scheme is real, according to Comer. From Daniel Chayton. Chris Wray confirmed a file containing allegations of a criminal bribery scheme involving President Biden really does exist. They do exist. The M&M's Christmas commercial. A top Republican lawmaker announced on Wednesday. In a statement released after having a discussion with Wray, House Oversight Chairman Jim Comer said the FBI leader offered to allow lawmakers to see documents at FBI headquarters but won't commit to giving them to Congress. A clear sign that their standoff over the subpoena is far from over. We've been clear that anything short of producing these documents to the House Oversight Committee is not in compliance with the subpoena, Comer said. If the FBI fails to hand over FD 1023 form as required by the subpoena, the House Oversight Committee will begin contempt of Congress proceedings. The Daily Wire reached out to the FBI seeking comment on Comer's announcement. So, and that's one of the interesting things with that too, is If it didn't exist, Ray would just come out and say, it doesn't exist, so I can't hand it over. What is it you exactly expect me to do? Because I can't just come back and hand over something that doesn't exist. He knows it exists. He acknowledges it exists. But he's basically come out and said, screw you, I'm not handing it over. So that tells me that it's real. And I'd kind of like to see what's in it, especially given the fact they're trying to hide the excuse of, oh, the agent that got the report might be in danger from dangerous domestic terrorist Trump supporters, or one thing or another. Dude, it's a declassified document. Marjorie Taylor Greene cannot get out of the action. Greene says McCarthy will release the January 6 tapes to 3 more outlets. From Lauren Sforza. Marjorie Taylor Greene announced Wednesday that 3 additional media outlets will receive access to footage from the January 6 Selfie Fest. Huge news! As I promised, the January 6 tapes will be released. Greene said that in a post that 3 outlets will receive unfettered access to the January 6 tapes. Noting that reporting on it will start on Thursday, House Speaker McCarthy, according to Greene, will give the tapes to Just the News founder John Solomon and Julie Kelly, a senior writer at The American Greatness, but she did not mention what the third outlet would be. Discussions over whether the January 6 tapes should be released to the media outlets ramped up earlier this year, after McCarthy granted former Fox News host Tucker Carlson access to more than 44,000 hours of footage from the attacks on the Capitol. The move prompted criticism from Democrats and media pundits who warned the footage could threaten security procedures at the Capitol. Yeah, that went away pretty goddamn quick, didn't it? Well, Tucker got fired almost immediately after. But that went away in a hurry, didn't it? Marjorie Taylor Greene just issued articles of impeachment on the January 6 tapes. Thank you, Mogwai. While airing the footage on his program, Carlson described the attacks as mostly peaceful chaos. So, I will be paying attention to Just the News and see if we actually get anything off of this, but I don't know that we actually will. Let's do some Jamal Bowman news. RNC Research tweeting out, Democrat Rep Jamal Bowman, we need to stop drilling for fossil fuels completely. We need an expedited way to get us to clean, renewable energy, or we will continue to have these severe weather events. Spooky, scary. Let's listen.
Number one, we need to stop drilling for fossil fuels completely. But number two, we need an expedited way to get us to clean, renewable energy, or we will continue to have these severe weather events that we have been having for quite some time and because of the warming of the planet. Number one, we need to stop drilling for fossil fuels completely. But number two, we need an expedited way to get us to clean, renewable energy, or we will continue to have these severe weather events that we have been having for quite some time and because of the warming of the planet. Number one, we need to stop drilling for...
Okay, so what do you do with the energy at this point? Without the fossil fuels, we don't have the energy requirements to sustain 8 billion people on this planet. Or trillion, I'm sorry. How many people are we in the billions or trillions? I don't even know. $8 billion. It's with a B, not a T. You don't have the energy resources in the world to sustain 8 billion people with wind and solar. It would be nice if you did. I'm not so against wind and solar that I would say that if the technology raised itself to a point that we could actually use it sustainably, not unsustainably like we have to now, that we shouldn't use it. We absolutely should, and it should be out there to supplement what we have so we have less dependence on the oil. These are all good things, by the way, while we continue to innovate more technology. But the point that I'm making is if you just stop, you are going to have a catastrophic starvation event on this planet, the likes of which you will not be able to recover from. But you don't care because you'll be eating your steak in your New York penthouse no matter what happens. That's all going to affect the little people of which you are no longer. That's not your concern anymore, Hakeem Jeffries. Really shows you where the priorities are, doesn't it? Article that we've been trying to get to for just a couple days. Starting with a tweet here that got community noted. I love community notes. Community notes are amazing. Starting with the Washington Post that also got community noted. Breaking news: the Supreme Court on Thursday cut back the power of the Environmental Protection Agency to regulate the nation's wetlands and waterways, another setback for the agency's authority to combat pollution. Readers added context they thought people would want to know. Coming from a New York Times article on top of it, all 9 judges agreed the EPA overstepped its authority and that the plaintiff's property should not be subject to EPA regulation. However, 4 judges disagreed with the majority's opinion on the limits of EPA authority with respect to wetlands. Well, Schumer came back out to tell a little bit more about this story. Look, the MAGA Supreme Court is continuing to erode our country's environmental laws. Make no mistake, this ruling will mean more polluted water and more destruction of wetlands. They'll keep fighting to protect our waters, which got the same community note. Which is funny because he voted to put 3 of the people on the court. Yes, on 3 of them. I think he voted on more than that too, because I think he was in the Senate at the time for Thomas and voted yes on him, if I remember correctly. From the Daily Wire following up on this. Let's get back up over here. Huh? Chuck U. Schumer slams MAGA Supreme Court after a unanimous decision. From Tim Meads. This is an op-ed, but based on what we just saw, there's fact to this op-ed. But again, the opinion is solely the opinion of Tim Meads and not the opinion of Ben Shapiro on the Daily Wire, Contemporary, Turns the Pages Productions, or your host, J. Edgar. Democrats attempt to smear anyone who goes against their agenda as a MAGA extremist, even if those individuals are liberal members of the United States Supreme Court. For example, this week, the Supreme Court released a unanimous 9-0 decision against the EPA and the Biden admin, thereby drastically cutting back the federal government's overreach. So what did Chuck Schumer do? Well, he threw them all under the bus with a warning to America, which we read. Plumb full of community notes. Dan McLaughlin of the National Review summed up how ludicrous Schumer's claim was. Unanimous SCOTUS decision written by George W. Bush appointee outcome joined by George H.W. Bush appointee, second W. Bush appointee, 2 Obama appointees, and a Biden appointee. The 3 Dems joined a concurring opinion written by a Trump appointee. He tweeted, "Chuck Schumer, that's so MAGA." For the justices, the 3 liberals and Brett Kavanaugh disagreed over the limits the EPA is afforded by Congress. For his part, Kavanaugh wrote, "By narrowing the Act's coverage of wetlands to only adjoining wetlands, the court's new test will leave some long-regulated adjacent wetlands no longer covered by the Clean Water Act, with significant repercussions for water quality and flood control throughout the United States." Readers should keep in mind Kavanaugh is one of the justices who Schumer threatened in 2020. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, You have released a whirlwind and you will pay the price, he said, in front of a raging crowd at the Supreme Court building in D.C. You won't know what hits you if you go forward with these awful decisions. Who's appointee? Let's go down the Supreme Court. John Roberts, HW appointee. Clarence Thomas, W appointee. Do I have that backwards? I think I have that backwards. Who appointed who in the Supreme Court? Let's find out. Let's go through this. Who appointed which Supreme Court justices? Nominations to the present, which will get us up to now. So let's have a look. Nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson under Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. Kagan and Sotomayor were Obama appointees. Sam Alito. Oh, John Roberts was a W appointee. I thought he was there for longer than that. The Chief Justice was W appointee. And then Clarence Thomas was the HW appointee. So that's whose is whose, and I will put this in to the live chat so you guys can review it. On both platforms, in fact. That's where I got confused, because I thought Roberts was older than Thomas. But it turns out I was incorrect about that one. Glad we looked that up. So there you go. You guys can go check out the source material there. Alright. Another older one. House GOP investigating Bank of America for voluntarily giving FBI a list of customers related to January 6th. From Brooks Singman. House Republicans are investigating whether Bank of America voluntarily turned over the FBI a list of customers who made the transactions in the days on and around the January 6th Selfie Fest, and those who purchased firearms with the bank's credit and debit cards. Which is really, really shady. If I didn't have such a full things I like and things that I hate list already, this would be over there on things that I hate. The House Judiciary Committee, its subcommittee on the weaponization of federal government, and the subcommittee on the administrative state, regulatory reform, and antitrust are conducting oversight of the FBI's receipt of information about American citizens from private entities. Jim Jordan, who chairs the full committee on the weaponization subcommittee, and Thomas Massie, who chairs the other subcommittee, told Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan in a letter obtained by Fox News Digital that they want more information on the bank's cooperation with the FBI. We require your cooperation in investigating these facts, Jordan and Massie wrote in their letter. They asked for all records related to the provision of customer data on June 8th. Dude, I'm not going to give you official financial advice, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is enough reason. Well, I've got other reasons not to bank with Bank of America, but this should be your big reason right here. Not to bank with Bank of America. Don't walk in there. Don't take your money there. Don't look in their direction. If you see a Bank of America, run away. Because they will turn over your records at the drop of a hat without a subpoena. If they think it'll get them some ESG or social credit score. Keep that in mind. Their standing with the federal government is more important than their relationship with you. I kind of want to play with marbles now. You guys remember the game Marble Madness? It was an old PC game with really bad graphics, but for its time, really epic music. Yeah, this track is a remix of one of theirs. Alright, another thing that would have made things I like and things that I hate tomorrow, except for the fact that we're already jam-packed on that. From the New York Post. Outraged critics rip CUNY, Central University of New York grads' hate-filled commencement speech. Demand billions in tax dollars be stripped. From Zach Williams and Alex Oliveira. Outraged critics are demanding CUNY's billions of dollars in taxpayer funding be stripped away after a law grad delivered a hate-filled and dangerous commencement address, ripping NYPD fascists and Israel. In her vitriolic May 12th graduation speech at the Public City University of New York's Law School, the newly minted grad Fatima Musa Mohammed called for a revolution to take on the legal system's white supremacy while blasting city cops and the U.S. military, claiming Israel carries out indiscriminate murder. Gee, I wonder why that didn't go over well in a law school in New York. This hate-filled and dangerous speech has been brought to you by CUNY and paid for by New York's taxpayers, tweeted Simcha Eichenstein, a Democratic State Assemblyman representing Brooklyn. Keep this in mind next time our elected leaders highlight their comments to fighting anti-Semitism. Richie Torres of New York said, imagine being so crazed by hatred for Israel as a Jewish state that you make it the subject of your commencement speech at a law school graduation. Anti-Israel derangement syndrome at work. Yeah, we've discussed a little bit of that in this live chat before. And I will, by the way, say a good thank you to you guys who did change up some of your tone after I said something on one of the gaming streams. I don't mind it coming up every once in a while, but like for some people, Spartan, it was an everyday thing and it was the only thing that he talked about ever, every single day. And I'm not that kind of a channel. I'm not an anti-Semite. Whenever I have a crush on a woman and she's otherwise not my type, I find out later on that she's Jewish. Usually not practicing, but... And I do thank you for laying off some of that, by the way. During her speech, Mohammed accused the school of having self-serving interests and said it continues to fail us, continues to train and cooperate with the fascist NYPD, the military, and continues to train Israeli soldiers to carry out the violence globally. Again, at a law school in New York, I can't imagine why this didn't go over well. So, that's an interesting one to see. And the last one, before we do something I'm thankful for and head out of here. We'll head out of here early tonight. We actually will do that tonight. But this one comes to us from the Daily Mail. Missing the target. Retailer shares plummet for 8th day in a row. Its biggest losing streak in 5 years as shoppers boycott store over its Pride tuck-friendly swimwear line. From Melissa Koenig for DailyMail.com. Target share prices continue to plummet for an 8th straight day on Tuesday, as the retailer faces its biggest losing streak in 5 years. Shares fell 3.66% on Tuesday, resulting in the once popular retail store losing a whopping $2.4 billion in market cap. Amid widespread backlash to its Pride display, which included tuck-friendly women's swimwear. Tuesday's losses put the stock on its longest losing streak since November 2018, according to Fox Business, with shares at a 52-week low of 133.88, down nearly 15% over the month. In total, Target's market value fell over $12 billion to $61.77 billion. As of Tuesday's closing, that's a stark difference from earlier in the month when its market value was over $74 billion. Yeah, I was just, before they did this kind of stuff, I was just shopping at Target, like 3 weeks ago. Just then, I bought underwear. And I think a couple paper goods. Because it's a department store that I can go to because I won't shop at Walmart. Now they're saying I can't even go to Kohl's, which was my backup to my backup. Which I don't really know what the controversy is there. I'm going to look it up since we're getting out here a little bit early. Conservatives and moderates alike have been boycotting Target since it was revealed last week that the retailer was selling clothes with the LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYOUAEIOU, sometimes Y-friendly slogans like trans people always exist, gay, and live, laugh, lesbian. Some have accused the chain of grooming children to a tweet that purports to show tuck-friendly girls bathing swimsuit with extra crotch coverage. Several stores in the rural South have now reportedly had to hide and tone down the pride sections. A staff member at Target headquarters are said to have held an emergency meeting to avoid what one insider called a Bud Light situation. Look, and again, it's not hard. I will come out and admit that there is a market for this stuff. There is a market for people to have tuck-friendly swimwear and want to get it at a reasonable price. And to do all the pride things, there is a market for that, but it does not have to be at the very front of the store. No matter what month it is, where the kids are going to be coming in there looking for the toys, and the electronics, and the video games, and yes, the clothes. You can have this kind of stuff, and even have it out, but not in the place where the kids directly go. And I don't think they'd be facing the same kind of backlash. They would still have backlash because they had it. There are certain right-wing aspects of things that would boycott as soon as they found out Target has it. I think, and I'm not sure, but that's the controversy that Kohl's is going through right now. And the big controversy that is trying to be dreamed up by left-wingers about what's going to happen starting tomorrow in the rest of the country, with all of the worst foods for you supporting the rainbow logo. And with that, we are going to move directly into, because it relates into what I am thankful for, what restores my faith in humanity, and we're going to head out of here for the night. So, as was mentioned, Target has lost $12 billion in market cap just over the last few weeks. And again, they were going strong as of the beginning of this month. My wallet that I use now, because my last one fell apart, is from Target. I bought it at Target. I bought it at Target right before I went on a date, by the way. Oddly enough. Target is an otherwise good store. It's one that I enjoy spending money in. Maybe it's because I'm a basic white bitch, except with, outdoor plumbing. Or maybe it's just because it gives me the alternative to be able to go back and have reasonably priced things, a little bit more expensive than Walmart, but without having to hear the preachiness most times of we won't sell an AR-15 or 223 ammo. But one of the things that I wanted to point out with when we talk about this, and when we talk about what's happening and what could potentially happen to some of these other big retailers coming up into Pride Month, is the fact that it's working. I still see occasionally people drinking Bud Light. I make myself go to the bar every Friday night just so I actually go out and have some human experience, because I didn't do that in my last place, the last place I lived. I was a complete shut-in for the entire time I lived in that community. And I don't do that anymore around here. And I do see people out drinking Bud Light. I do see people buying it, but it's way, way fewer and further between than it was. It's going for next to free at the Quick Trip. Every Quick Trip that I go to, Bud Light is going for next to free. The Miller is bought out. Everything else is bought out, but the Bud Light just sits on the shelf, and so do the other Anheuser-Busch products. Target is losing massive amounts of market cap, and their parking lot is emptier than I've seen it when I go by there in a very, 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 very long time. It's not completely empty, but it's emptier than I have seen it for a while. And that's part of the reason that these companies are scared. They said it right in the article. They don't want to have a Bud Light situation. It's working. It's part of the reason when we saw the article last night that doing anything boycotting Target is akin to violence because it's working. Because they're starting to feel the pressure. And when we say the boycott too, that's an important distinction there, because when Antifa or far left groups go back and boycott, they do the financial boycott and then they go back and bust out windows and get violent. Whereas the right-wing backlash to this kind of thing just says, we're going to stop buying your product. Target is not so much a right-wing thing, but, well, kind of, because typically, part of the reason I like going there, Target's usually associated with upper middle class to upper class white women. Again, one of the reasons I like going there. But Bud Light is your working class, the people who defected out of the Democrat Party to go be Trump supporters. And it's working. I am not gonna lie. I would not want to be a marketing director for McDonald's or Taco Bell or Subway or a plethora of other companies that are about to change their logo at midnight tonight into a rainbow, except in Arabic-speaking countries. Because the Target thing and the Bud Light thing are fresh on everybody's memories. It's not like some time has passed and now they're going to slip it in under the radar. Everybody knows that they do this all year, every year, or for all month, every year. Everybody knows that they don't do it in Arabic-speaking countries anymore. And now, again, it's fresh on their memories to say, hey, I see that rainbow logo, screw you. I'm not going to be spending my money with you guys anymore. So, for a long time, conservatives and libertarian-leaning Americans did not have a way to fight back in the culture war. Because these big producers catered to left-wing factions because it was only their boycotts that worked. Now that we have a boycott going the other way that works, they're scared, and that restores my faith in humanity. Because we can come back to a point where it's just about market and putting out a good product instead of catering to one focus group or the other. I love that. I would love to see that. And I would love to see companies judged on their products, not their DEI scores, or their ESG scores, or their social credit scores, or anything else. Sell the product and keep your mouth shut on everything else. Yes, I know it's a cliche, but shut up and dribble. That's going to be on one of the things that I hate tomorrow night too, with the artists coming out and telling us how we're supposed to feel and how we're supposed to vote. But that will be for tomorrow night. With things that something that restores my faith in humanity, we're done for the night. And yes, it was supposed to be full screen. Because I didn't necessarily we already read the article when we talked about Target, so we're done. It's early. I'm going to have dinner before midnight tonight. Woohoo! Where's our outro music? Let's finish this out. Alright, so with that, we're done. We're out of here. Early night tonight, you guys, so go spend some extra time talking with your family. Give your family a hug. Go get some dinner. Have yourselves a good time throughout the rest of the night. Watch a movie. I might do that. I've been getting curious about Westerns, so I think 310 to Yuma might be coming up here in the near future tonight. Or maybe I'll just watch more Let's Play StarCraft reruns. I don't know, I've been doing that for a while here, but regardless, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get some dinner, have some salad, and, maybe have some conversation. Maybe I'll go talk to some family here tonight, although I did call my mom last night. So, we'll be back here tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central Time, to talk about what happened in the vote for the debt ceiling. We'll be talking about where this goes, what happens next, because we're in limbo right now. We won't see what happens with that until tomorrow. But come back and join me here. We will see what happens in the next 23 hours, 22 and a half. 22 and a half hours. We'll see what happens there. And if you are on the Twitch side, stick around. We're going to go find somebody to raid over there because we love to raid over on the Twitch side. So stick around, come back and join us for that. Who are we going to raid? 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 Let's go see my friend Skeletora. She might be hammered by this point. I know that was one criticism when I accidentally left stream on one night that Mr. Scott and Ron Hilton were joking about the fact that I do love drunk female gamers. So we're going to go find a drunk female gamer here. So stick around for that if you're on the Twitch side. Otherwise, come back here and join us here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until tomorrow, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.